Let's talk a little bit about none of us are female youth pastors, but Ann and Gil, you guys are familiar with this. We talked about that 13% wage gap. I think there's also some bias that comes in the hiring and even in the salary review process. And I would say not just related to gender, but there's, I would say, bias when hiring youth pastors for a whole sort of things. You know, we want a youth pastor that's married versus a single guy, those kinds of things. What can churches and what can youth pastors do in terms of getting hired, those kinds of discussions? What can maybe female youth pastors do in terms of getting paid better, getting pay raises, those kinds of things?
I can start by just saying that, first of all, I mean, there's only a handful of denominational bodies that would hire a female youth pastor. And so you're putting yourself in a niche already in a lot of ways. Obviously, non-denominational, they play their own game completely. They can do whatever they want. And so what's interesting is in my data, most of the denominations that are highly egalitarian actually have the biggest gap in compensation. And so while they'll hire female youth pastors, they're doing it at 75 cents on the dollar compared to their male counterparts. The Presbyterians are kind of the exception to that. They are very equitable across like gender. And so I always say, first and foremost, payroll banding for a church is really important. We shouldn't determine how much we can pay a youth pastor based on how, are they married? Does their spouse work? How many kids do they have? The number and the range should be based on years of experience and education, maybe track record. And you shouldn't care what their name is, what color their skin is, what their gender is, all those types of things. Now, I understand churches' denominational polity have different red tape and barriers and things like that. I don't want to get into that. All I'm saying is if you're considering a female candidate, you shouldn't look at that as we're hiring a discounted candidate, especially because a lot of the times if they're married, their husband in a traditional home is the breadwinner, quote unquote. And so we don't have to pay them as much. No. Have your range set prior to your interviewing. I'm talking to you, executive pastors and senior pastors, so that hey, it doesn't matter who we're hiring. This is what we can afford to pay them and what we think we want in terms of qualifications, and then go from there.
Definitely.
You said it right in the beginning. It's like the complementary egalitarian divide is like the first and foremost the bigger issue. So a lot of women want to apply to a lot of good churches that will straight up not hire them simply because they're a woman, and that's already an issue. I think what we're seeing more and more now is like people having the title of youth director, youth I don't know,
coordinator.
Youth coordinator. And functionally, they're the exact same role as a youth pastor, but because they're a woman, they have a different title. And I think one thing that I'm seeing more often from complementarian denominations is that, or traditions, is that they will now allow some sort of licensing or some other kind of credential, so that way they can get those tax benefits, those clergy benefits. And so again, the exact same role and function as a pastor, just they don't have the title pastor. And so depending on the church, they might not be able to get the pay bump that a pastor can get. I mean, I can't, again, it's if you're in the process of looking for a job, having those clear conversations, because I know plenty of women who want to serve, who don't mind serving as a complementarian setting and fine with having the title distinction as long as they're being treated fairly, right? Like as long as they're getting paid fairly, they do. Like again, I'm not even that impressed with the title pastor or director or whatever, as long as because we're all doing the same exact job and we're all caring for students and leading kids towards Christ. I think having those hard conversations, and I was having a conversation with a youth worker. Her name is Ashley Bonick. She works for Orange, and she was talking about how as a single woman, there's like so many like steps of barriers that even a single guy could get in terms of coming into youth ministry, that again, like the fact that she's single, they take advantage of her time, because the fact that like she's single, she can work late nights. She can always, be the one on call to do the hospital visits on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. And because she's single, they don't think that she needs as much money or as many benefits. And I think if you're going into the job, to having those clear conversations and talk about the elephant in the rooms, like say, I am a woman and I am, whether it's single, whether it's I'm married, but I'm not planning on having kids for a while. Like, will this be an issue moving forward in terms of moving up in my role as a youth pastor here? Or what does that look like? Having those clear conversations and not being ashamed, because I feel like there's even this undue pressure on women to be this like submissive, quiet spirit, even in the job interview, and say, you're trying to make a living here. You have to have these hard conversations. Don't be intimidated by that. And ultimately, if you're, and this is going to be the awkward part, if you're going to go to a church that won't value you simply because you're a woman, that might not want to be the place you want to work at. You know what I'm saying? That you might want to find another place to work at, even if it is complementarian, that sees equity amongst the different staff in their system.